everyone, and welcome to this episode of Sleep and Relax ASMR, the podcast dedicated to confusing you, relaxing you, and ultimately putting you to sleep. You may wonder, where is this going today? And I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I'm just as lost as you are. So confused, so many questions, and just from the start, I don't see why not. See, the one thing I'm not confused by is how great it is to sleep on a Helix mattress every night. It's not confusing, it's not a joke to sleep on a bad mattress. We spend 88% of our life sleeping, trust me on that stat. So why wouldn't you invest in the best mattress possible? You've heard me talk about Helix before, but if you don't know about them, let me introduce you to the number one mattress for 2019 and 2020, according to GQ and Wired magazine. Helix offers custom mattresses that adapt to you and your sleep preferences. Soft, medium, firm mattresses for any body type and sleep preference. It's very easy, very fun. Visit helixsleep.com/relax, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. And they have a 10-year warranty plus 100-night trial. So if somehow you don't love it, you can just pretend it never happened. But I doubt that'll be the case. I took their sleep quiz and was matched with a Helix Dusk mattress, a medium feel mattress that offers just the right feeling for me and my sleep preferences. Something too soft would leave me sore, something too firm would leave me sore. But the Dusk mattress allows me to sleep in any position and get a great night's rest. Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners by visiting helixsleep.com/relax. That's all you gotta do. You go to Helix, HELIX, sleep.com/relax for up to $200 off. Take their sleep quiz. Invest in your sleep. 88% of our lives we're sleeping. I'm sure that's a stat. So come on, helixsleep.com/relax. It's well worth it. Enjoy. But look, we continue on the journey, on the route of confusion. I sometimes say route, sometimes root, like a root from a plant or a tree. I had a friend of mine that once, instead of saying won, as in I won a tournament, and that's a different word, isn't it? That can also, because I sometimes say tournament, and then I've heard others say tournament. But there's one friend of mine, we were playing in a tournament, or tournament, depending on how you want to say it, and we actually won that tournament. And when you would ask him, he wouldn't say we won it with that kind of tinge of W at the beginning to distinguish. He would say we won it. O-N-E. Completely indistinguishable. It's just these words that you don't really know what is it route? Is it root? No one says tomato unless you're from the UK. So I always think that that's a very silly example. Route, root, tournament, 1-1 in the case of this friend. And we did win that tournament. It was actually a basketball competition, believe it or not. You didn't know that I was multifaceted. You didn't know that I could play on a winning basketball side and also confuse you to sleep. Anyone that knows me on a personal level knows that it's not that surprising, actually. It's a very silly observation by my part, I know. But I wonder how many botanists are able to determine what plants are so easily, and how. I took a rainforest tour several years back, and the botanist, she was so great at pointing out the different types of plants and flowers. And aside from the obvious, such as different sizes and colors, they all look exactly the same to me. Sorry, I don't know if that's politically incorrect. And I'm not going to get involved in politically incorrect things. It's not my style. I don't go out of my way to figure out what to say to get a feeling or a rise out of people. I hold a similar opinion of arborists. My family members, neighbors, husbands, cousins, twice removed uncle, fact check me on that. He's an arborist, and same deal, telling me about trees, oak and spruce and this and that. And I'm just thinking, I suppose trees are easier to know the difference between because, they come in much different shapes and sizes, different kind of leaves on them, but it's all the same to me. And I know, again, I don't want to be politically incorrect. All trees and all plants look the same to me. I'm sorry. But I'm the opposite. I want to help you to just chill and relax. The fact a nonsensical podcast with nonsensical rambles helps you relax, well, it helps me relax. Because helping you gives me that sense of pride and joy. It lets me know I'm doing a very small part, but a part nonetheless, to help others enjoy their nights a bit more than usual. And I'm a big believer that we should all strive to do our part. Maybe you like to pick up trash. Maybe you like to tell jokes. Maybe you like to call people that you know are lonely. We all have our part. Let's play that part. I help you sleep. And I guess it's also me serving myself because it gives me a sense of pride and joy in routine. Routines help me tremendously in being able to settle down and get into the mood for ultimate rest. The Helix mattress does most of the work, I will admit that. But having a plan and executing it helps me to go to bed with a certain peace of mind. Sometimes routines can get in the way. They can create some anxiety. That'll happen to me from time to time. I'll feel tired or get caught up and busy with life, but then my brain will tell me, follow the routine. That then will make me rush through other activities so that I can say to myself, to my brain, I have accomplished the things in my routine that I've set before me. It's pretty counterintuitive, counterproductive. Counter anything, if you think about it. Counterattack it. You gotta counterattack your brain because you know in your head that, you know in reality, you know in your heart at least, and it depends who you try to listen to most. Are you listening mostly to your brain or your heart? And then you have to throw in the gut. Some of us listen mostly to our gut. How do you make the distinction when to listen to your heart versus your head versus your gut? It's hard to tell. I try to make most of my decisions, I think, with my head while consulting the heart and the gut. But sometimes I'm very stubborn. Sometimes my gut will give me an intuition about something. And since when do guts give intuitions about anything? But mine does. I'm sure yours does. My heart gives, it plays mostly on compassion and, kindness and, hey, do this favor for someone. They need the help, But then my head will tell me, my brain will tell me, this person also made a conscious decision to put themselves in this position where now they need help. And no, I'm not talking about homeless people. I always give something to homeless people. I mean people around me that I know on a personal level that I know. I'll give you a great example so you don't think I'm an absolute terrible person. During my time at college or uni, as Canadians like to say, I had this one friend of mine, great friend, fantastic friend, the best. And he would always wait until the last minute to do assignments. But he knew that in my manic mind, my routine-oriented way of being, that I would always have the assignment ready well before it was due. Rather than my friend making the decision to do things with time, do it with patience, with care, with honor, with dignity, with diligence, with anything. Instead, it was like a circus with him. He'd leave it to the last few hours. So what would my beloved, dear, great friend do? He would consult with me, not so that I could share my assignment, but so that I could basically function as a consultant to help him complete his assignment. And so again, my brain, my heart is telling me, look, do nice things for good people. And he was a good guy. He's a very kind person. He meant well. He just had no sense of time management. He had no sense of how to prioritize anything in his life. So that's my heart pulling at me. My gut isn't flaring up because my gut knows that this guy is a quality person. So it's no longer an issue about, is my gut giving me an intuition about this person or not? But then my brain would always kick in and say, look, he has to learn eventually that you can't leave important assignments until the last minute to complete, Ultimately, I would, in every case, offer to help him because I was thinking more with my heart, letting my heart do the leading. My brain knew this guy's got to learn. He means well, good guy, smart guy, but he's just terrible at time management. He needs to understand the consequences, and he needs to understand he cannot rely. I felt like I was sometimes aiding in someone's bad habits. But yes, ultimately, my heart is doing most of the thinking, and I executed with, that in mind, with the mind of the heart, that is, because I knew that if I do something good for people, it's also good for me. It's good for the world, and I think it helps others. I think he is now a kinder person because he understands how kind I was to help him out. That's the idea, at least. The gut gets mostly involved in business transactions and quote-unquote investments that people have wanted to wrangle me into. The one very clearly I remember, going back to college or uni, once again, as my dear Canadian listeners like to refer it as. At that time, look, I was a very naive child, person, adult thing, probably still am, but there was this multi-level marketing scam going on around campus and other campuses at that time. And I'll run through now why, if you think about it in retrospect, why it was so obvious. The answer was always no, you shouldn't join. Anyway, another good friend of mine, not the friend that I've been helping with assignments, but a different friend, got involved with this multi-level marketing thing. They would sell telecom, and I think it was telecom and some other kind of services. They would basically broker services for like phone lines and electric bills, which is kind of silly. Basically they would sell you electricity that you could just get from cheaper directly from your provider, whatever state or province you're in. And the same would apply to, let's say, phone bills, because it's not like what brand ambassadors or sponsorship deals do, which is, brands will offer an exclusive offering to listeners of this podcast and other kind of forms. In this case, they would basically just sell you, let's say, cell phone plan from, any provider, and they would just mark it up by 20 or 30%, and the way they made most of their money is like any multi-level marketing is, which is they would add recruits into their pipeline or network, whatever they're called nowadays, and that person would receive a kickback or commission. But I remember because these guys have their sales pitch down. It's so refined, right? It's so well refined and defined and all of it. And a friend of mine invites me to a presentation. I go to the presentation. Everyone is exceptionally polite. They do the presentation, very professional. It all makes sense. All the numbers. And they pitch you about this idea of, hey, look at all this money that you could be making. So my logical mind, not understanding multi-level marketing at that time yet, was thinking, the numbers and what they're saying makes sense, assuming they're true. And I tend to skew on the side of those that are positive and have trust in people. But then my gut was thinking, hold on, something might be wrong here. Of course, what happens at the end of the presentation is they want you to sign something. They want you to pay on the spot because they know that they have crafted a very well put together presentation that theoretically should get you really excited to go ahead and give them money today so that you can make money, right? I remember my one friend that made the introduction, he had already signed up, of course, so he was now trying to get us to pay. Not such a good friend if you think about it. But he brought along, I think, 5 other friends, and 2 of us signed and paid and got involved on the spot. I said, let me think about it, because my gut was telling me, not sure about this. Go back to my dorm at this time. We were freshmen, 18 years old. Talked to my roommate about it, and my roommate had a little bit more life experience than me, and he said, hey, what these guys are pitching you, it's called a multi-level marketing company. They're mostly, if not all, total scams. Look it up. And then he said, think about it. Why would they go to campuses? Unsupervised children, basically. In the case of 17 and 18-year-olds, first time living outside their house. They're ambitious, they're dumb, they're hungry for a taste of life. Why would they come here? Why don't they go to conferences? Why don't they advertise anywhere else? I said, makes sense. They want gullible, young adults, impressionable, that might have a little bit of exposable income, at least enough to cover the bill for the commission that whoever introduced them would get. And so even though at the time my logical brain couldn't quite wrap its head around what was wrong with the pitch and the presentation and the crap that it was being told by this people in this organization, my gut told me, you need to reconsider. And then, of course, once I had a bit more information, I said no. So again, it's all about, are you leading with your head? Are you leading with your heart? Are you leading with your gut? Which one do you, but look, it's also unrealistic because one must be flexible. Where is the middle? Where is the straight path to the truth? The fastest way to any place is the straightest path, although the path least traveled is typically most interesting. That's a poem by Robert Frost, or no, it's actually the road not taken. That's the poem. My grandfather always said, you must be flexible in life, and at that time, when I was having a temper tantrum, I would get upset and say that I wasn't physically flexible, and therefore I did not want to be emotionally flexible. It is a stupid argument I made as a kid when I would throw fits. And everybody has or had them. I think of the things that have gotten me upset. I've been upset over getting only 1 croissant instead of 2 as part of my breakfast. I was 12 years old. I remember getting upset about not having enough sweet and sour when I ordered my nuggets. I was 12 years old as well. And that happened on a couple of occasions. I just don't see why they're so stingy with the sweet and sour. Personally, for every 5 nuggets, you should have 1 sweet and sour, in my opinion. Certainly most of my dumbest tantrums have come in the form of myself when I was 12 years old and surrounding food. What can I say? I've always associated food with comfort in many ways. And when you mess with my food, I am prone to outbreaks of anger and very, very, very rarely rage, which lasts about 10 seconds, and then nothing happens. Last time, that's the way it happened. It's basically a story with no start or end, as far as I'm concerned. And that reminds me of the Netflix movie I saw recently, The Last Thing He Wanted. What a gem of a film, let me tell you. It stars Anne Hathaway and Ben Affleck. And you may be wondering, that doesn't ring a bell. Did they advertise it? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Are you making this up? Well, it's a film about a journalist. And it's too hard to really tell you what happens from that point. Oh, and Willem Dafoe is in there, by the way. Willem Dafoe. So really a superstar cast by any reasonable standard, and it's just a gem of a disaster. Shot super well in my opinion, but the story, I don't know where it started or it ended. Just watch the movie and go into it with the idea that you're watching a movie that is so bad that it's kind of fun by the middle of it, so have fun with it. Food is probably a comfort for many, and when people say they don't understand other habits and addictions, for example smoking, I can definitely understand, because I think just about everyone has them. Mine is food and coffee. If I don't have a coffee by a certain part of the day, my brain starts ringing the alarm and letting me know, and I get obsessed with getting up and making coffee. So again, I can understand that, and for others it just manifests in different ways. Unless your discipline is at the absolute max, the highest levels of discipline, or perhaps you're the type of person that doesn't have an addictive personality, but I tend to think most of us have some form of addictive personalities. Others bounce from extremes to extremes. I have a very good friend who may be listening, and if you are, what's up, buddy? But he goes from this crazy hedonistic lifestyle where he's partying and living up on the beach, living the vida loca, and then the next moment he decides he wants to be a Buddhist monk and live his life without temptation and living with total selflessness. Two very far extremes, if you ask me. But with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and dismount this very confusing ramble with no beginning, middle, or end. I hope I've helped you relax or sleep just a little bit. I want to thank Helix again for sponsoring this episode. Remember, helixsleep.com/relax. Get that $200 off. Get those 2 free pillows. You will not regret it. Fantastic brand. And they make some amazing products. As always, if you have any questions, comments, reach out. hello@sleepandrelaxasmr.com. That's all for this episode. Thanks as always for listening, and take care.